Hi, this is Neeraj. Welcome to the Chess Magical Show of Tal. In this game, we will see how Tal sacrificed and how he being able to pull a few tactical tricks out of the bag at the appropriate moment. So let's get started with e4, white playing e4 as a Tal, and c5, Polugayevsky playing as a black. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. Open Sicilian, knight f6, knight c3, a6. Now, open Sicilian Najdorf variation with bishop to g5 line, knight bd7, bishop to c4. It's also called a Sicilian attack, uh, invented by the Bobby Fischer. Queen a5, hitting the bishop as well as the creating a pin here. And now queen to the d2. e6, now castle, bishop to e7. Now Tal being centralizing his rook with the rook a d1, knight to the c5, rook fe1, bishop to d7, a3. A simple looking move. The black queen has to retreat because of the b4 fork. So queen c7, now b4. Okay. Consider carefully what white would play after three other possible defenses here, like number one, knight takes e4, rook to the c8, and now the b5. The main move here for a black is the knight to a4. Now consider all these three. Let's see first if a black is try to capture our pawn with the knight takes e4, then knight takes e4, queen takes c4. So black gain a pawn here. But now Tal had in mind the combination of bishop takes f6, g takes f6, which is the force, and now sacrificing the knight f5. It's look like sacrificing, but this is a combination. So you can't capture the f5 knight, otherwise you're gonna lose the queen. Now second one. In this position, b5. Let's say 13th move, b5, countering bishop. If you capture knight, then I will capture the bishop. Let's see. Then knight to the b5. Knight d takes b5. Tal had calculated all the variation after the a takes b5, knight takes b5, bishop takes b5, bishop takes b5 check, and the only move look like which is the knight c to d7. Now black is piece up against the two pawn, but here it is a crushing blow. It's a white to play and e5. After the e5, black is fall apart everywhere. If d takes e5, we will capture that bishop takes knight f6, and now this knight will be gone after bishop takes d7. Now third reply of the 13th, rook to the c8. We had seen b5 and knight takes e4. Now rook c8. What happened? If a rook c8, then simply white had calculated b takes c5. If queen takes c5, it look like that one of the pieces will gonna fall, but Tal had in mind, which is again a crushing e5. After the e5, there is nothing left for a black. If queen capture on c4, now we have e takes f6, g takes f6, knight to e4, and it's look like that sacrificing a bishop here, but no, again same tactic, knight to f5, hitting the d6 as well as the bishop. with the e7, capturing the e7. Now come back to that again, e5. If what happened if knight moved? Let's say in this position knight to the, let's say, h5. After the h5 we have bishop takes e7 also in this position. If king cross, then simply we have d takes d6. Now come back to that main move, 13th, knight to the a4, which is the game continuation. After that, knight takes a4, bishop takes a4, and now it's time chess magic. Mr. Tal, it's time for white to play. Can you figure it out? What's coming? Bishop takes e6. Why? Because when knight capture that e6, it will get double attack on a g7 as well as the queen c7. After that, f takes e6, knight takes e6, queen cross c2. Now we don't want to exchange our queen, so Tal did also, selling the queen with the queen to the d4, king f7, rook c1, hitting the queen, queen to a2, because this is a very weak diagonal, so it's queen a2 is a good move here. Now Tal did a very attacking move, which is the e5 pawn. Okay, what happened if knight takes g7 before the e5? This is not a dangerous move for a black. Why? Because king captured that g7, rook c7. Here we are creating the two pin, bishop as well as the knight, but black can find very easily a defensive move, which is the queen to e6. Then bishop takes f6, queen takes f6. Now queen is pinned, so we can capture that bishop. Rook takes e7, king g6, and now you can see that bishop is a plus against the two pawn, which is not a good for a black. So come back to that 18th, queen a2, and now e5 for a black, for a white. After the e5, now d takes e5, which is the game continuation. We had seen that knight takes g7. Now d takes e5, queen takes e5, and black found a very defensive move, which is queen takes f2. Black forces transfers into the end game because the attempt to get more with rook he8. Let's see if black try to play rook he8, try to save the game, but here also black cannot survive because bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, rook c7 check, king g8, and I hope you saw what's coming. Rook g7 and winning the game. So that's why black found after the queen takes e5 the defensive move, which is the queen cross f2. Queen takes on f2. After that, this is a force. King cross, king capture on f2, knight g4 check, king g1, knight takes on e5, and rook takes on e5. Tal undoubtedly consider this transposition into the end game before he embark upon this combination. Okay, so after that, rook takes e5, we have bishop takes g5. Then knight takes g5, king g6, and knight e6. You wonder that why Tal not goes for that king hunt. Then Tal cannot complete this checkmate because of the strong bishop will come on c6. Let's see. King takes on g5, rook c5 check, king to the f4, king to f2, bishop c6. That bishop is guarding the e4 square. So g3 check, king to g4, and now you can't play rook to the e4. So the continuation of the variation can be like rook takes, rook takes on c6, b takes on c6, king g2, threatening here h3 mat, but black can find very defensive move here, the matting save with g5. That's why the knight goes for that king hunt and simply played knight to e6. After rook he8, we have pin, so rook e3, rook ac8, try to challenge the rook and exchanging the pair of rook, rook f1, cutting down the king here. So bishop to b5, hitting the rook. We have rook g3 check, king to the h6, and now knight takes g7. A spirited horse here. In this position, rook to the f8. After rook to the f8, let's say before rook f8, if black try to capture that rook, bishop takes f7, then what happened? Let's see. After that, simply knight takes on e8. If rook takes on e8, then simply king takes on f1 will be the good also for a white. So come back to that rook f8, try to challenge the rook. Then we have rook, we can play rook e1, rook f6, try to save this e6 square. Then we have h3, try to get space for our king. Now rook c2, and after the rook c2, simply we can win the game. Put rook on the h file, it will be enough for a black. So rook to e4. Now try to exchange the rook and challenge the rook on rook c4 and rook e5, and now black is paralyzed because rook h5 is coming. After rook to the c1, white find a very good salter, king h2, and now black resign. Black can't do against this rook h5, and black resign. I hope you enjoy magic show of chess. If you like content, then like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.